13 Colonies Distilleries make Southern Rye Whiskey, Southern Bourbon Whiskey, and they even made a special release of a double oak bourbon, and they offered to send me some bottles to do a review. So if you want to hear about it, stick around. First off, disclaimer, this is not a paid sponsorship. They offered to send me the bottles for free. I agreed under the stipulation that if I got the bottles after tasting them, I didn't want to do the review, I didn't have to. And so that's how these bottles showed up. So let's get into a little bit of the background. So 13th Colony, I believe is how you say it, is the oldest operating distillery in the state of Georgia, which is pretty cool. They opened in 2009. And their whiskey is not sourced. They make their own whiskey. And I've been told that it is a straight whiskey, although it does not say so on the label. So this is one of the many examples that you can find where the TTB approved a label and it wasn't 100% accurate. I have done this on a brand that I was working on where I left the word straight off and I was not supposed to. So, just keep that in mind. This is a straight whiskey. I know there are people out there that say that if it's not straight, you must debate, but this is a straight whiskey, so don't be afraid of it. And also know that they are working on a new label that does disclose that it is a straight whiskey. So that's good. I will also state that this whiskey was not as oily as I expected, and that's because I assumed that a distillery of this size was going to make their whiskey on a pot still, and it was going to be thick and unctuous and oily, and it wasn't, and as it turns out, they do use a column still, and it definitely shows, so that's pretty interesting. So let's jump right into the Southern Rye Whiskey. It is 95 proof. The MSRP is $34.49 at my local Total Wine because they are in Total Wines in Texas, although they're not distributed everywhere. This whiskey is interesting because it's aged in French oak, even though it doesn't say so on the label. It is something that was mentioned to me in an email conversation. It does not have an age statement on it, and we've talked about this before, but when a whiskey is non-age stated in the United States, they are disclosing to you that it is 4+ years. I did read something that said that the website said that it was 3+ years, but I couldn't find that. And if it were 3 to 4 years, or if even a drop of it was 3 to 4 years, it would have to have an age statement, and it does not. In either case, it would have qualified as a straight. The mash bill is 96% rye, 4% malted barley. And, tasting notes, nosing notes. This is a pretty sweet smelling and tasting whiskey. Loads and loads of caramel. But there's also a black licorice component, which I don't get on all ryes, but when I get it on a whiskey, it is usually a rye. And it's got a bit of a black pepper. And there's a sweetness to this that reminds me a little bit of the 95.5 rye that we get from MGP that I bottle for the Prideful Goat. So there's that sweet backbone in there that makes it pretty interesting. But I'll save my overall comments for the end, but pretty interesting. Now let's talk a little bit about the Southern Bourbon Whiskey. It is also 95 proof, and MSRP on this is $41.49 at my local Total Wine. It is aged 4+ years, although some websites state that many of the barrels that go into this blend are 5 to 6 years old. But again, it's non-age stated on the label, which is totally legal because it's over 4 years. The mash bill is 70% corn, 21% rye, 9% malted barley. And this one, too, is very sweet. Loads of caramel, again. And this one has something that's a bit of a, maybe the color red. The website says cherry. I've seen some other reviews that say cherry. I don't think that they're wrong, but this tastes less like a cherry cough drop or like a cherry candy and more like red Twizzlers to me. There was a point at which I took a sip, and the second that I tasted it, my brain went to red Twizzlers. There's also quite a bit of sweet oak on this. Quite lovely. And I don't have a whole bottle, unfortunately, but they did send me a sample of their double oaked bourbon. It is cask strength, so it's 135.5 proof. I won't give you the rest of the details because it's sold out. But I did also hear that this bad boy's trading for hundreds of dollars on the secondary. And I can see why. Just lovely. Everything that the bourbon's got, plussed up to 10, plus a nice leather component. There's some smoke that's going on in here. Getting some flavors that I would normally get on some, maybe like a hint of a dusty flavor. A little bit of a dust basement-y kind of thing going on, mixed in with tons, just loads and loads of sweet flavors. I totally see why this is trading on the secondary. So I'd say in conclusion, both the bottles that are currently available, the rye and the bourbon, I'd rate them both a buy. I could see how someone would maybe not like the rye as much because of that anise component. But I would say that if you are a fan of root beer, I think that you'd love this rye whiskey because it's got a little bit of that, root beer, cola type flavor going on in there. The bourbon is so good that Lindsay had to chastise me for drinking too much of it before I did the review because, we get bottles in all the time. And just so you guys know, I pass on doing a lot of reviews when people send me product because, I don't want to trash the brand and I didn't really like it. So no reason to, publicize that. But when I got this one, Lindsay and I had a lazy day. We were both working on the couch. I had the bottle sitting there and you can see it's about half gone because Lindsay and I were both sipping on it. And at some point she said hey, you need to slow down. I'd also say that I suspect that both of these are aged in at least some barrels that are both toasted and charred, although I was not able to independently confirm that. But there's enough of that subtle sweet oak in there, that smokiness, a hint of some chocolate in both of these whiskeys that I would not be surprised if the barrels were both toasted and charred. But if you want to check these out for yourself, you can check with your local retailer to see if they're carried in your state. And if they're not, do not worry because they are on seal box. Although at the moment that I'm recording this, they're sold out, but it says coming soon. So they probably have an order coming in soon. And you can just go to sealbox.com. That's SEELBACHS.com. So it's not seal like when I think seal box, I think BOX. That's not it. It's BACHS. But you can find it on there. Just search 13 Colonies. I hope you found this review helpful. And if you did and you liked the content, please like and subscribe. And as always, if you woke up this morning, you're unsure whether or not anyone loved you, just know that I love you. And I'll see you next time on Bourbon Real Talk.